oh heck, I might as well just get on with it. So I'm here fiddling around trying to get things to work, making all kind of stuff. Doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter, we're here and that's what's important. Hello! Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Q A, if you like, about the Molten BYPASS. Just released this brand new module. Very exciting. Very exciting. It's been a very crazy day. Just checking all my things. Checking all my bits. Yeah, that seems to be all right. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay. Don't really want this thing in my face as I can help it. So thanks for joining us for the premiere and for Divkid's premiere. That was super. That was. It's very exciting to see a module come into being. It takes a lot longer than you'd think. To the point where you're just going, oh, is this are we ever gonna get there? But that is just the nature of things. It takes time for ideas to become components, for components to find themselves onto a board, for boards to be approved and then to be tested and then sent back and sent through again and recycled as firelighters and all those kinds of things. It takes time. So it's great. It's great to finally be here, to have my second module. Gosh, that's so exciting. So yeah, I hope you got the gist of it. I'm open to questions. I'll do my best to answer them as best as I can. There's possibly technical details that I'm not entirely sure of, but hey, you know, I'm the ideas man. I'm the creative man. I'm not the person who actually put it together. Although I will, of course, it's gone away. Be putting one together because I have the kit somewhere. What did I do with that? Oh, I don't know. Which I will do a video of, the build of, in as soon as I can, really, because if they're available for sale, which I think they are, then you could probably do with a bit of a guide to it. So I will endeavour to do that. It's just busy times at the moment. Busy times. Thanks for joining me. Good to see you in the chat. I know this has been it's been a little bit last minute because well, I've just been busy. Just been busy trying to pull all this together. I was making the video you saw earlier this afternoon, literally a couple of hours ago. I was trying to get it finished desperately for this evening, and but we made it and we're here, and now we can I'm probably going to open the beer and then we can have a look. Hey Dots, hi Ken. Elf's Music, Ben, hi, good to see you. Thanks ever so much, mate, for that video. That was just brilliant. No one can do videos quite like you do. That's you know, a skill that you have in really cutting to what it is that this thing does. You know, no flouncy language, no flowery, other than a little bit of dancing at the end, I noticed. And it's just right on the money, you know, which is brilliant. That's I'm so grateful for that. Thank you very much indeed. Probably the complete other end of the scale will be the cinematic laboratory one tomorrow, which I'm also fascinated to see, because you know, he just does beautiful things with bits of gear, and so yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun to see that tomorrow. So, well, if no one's got any questions, then we'll call it a night, shall we? Yeah, but thanks. I mean, I can talk a little bit about where it came from, because it's more than I mean, to talk you through what I was thinking. I don't know if you've been following me for a while. Whenever I talk about effects and stuff within a Eurorack context, I've always been moaning about the lack of bypass. Always, it's a constant. Come up against it, going, oh, there's just no flipping bypass. It's been driving me nuts. Oh, there's a question from Divkid which says, which will lead into all of this actually. Was there a specific module that you really wanted to turn on and off like a pedal that made the idea come to life? Well, funnily enough, it was the Magneto, the Strymon Magneto, which is this big tape echo, tape loop type module that I never really got to grips with. I sold it at the auction that we had earlier in the year. Finally, after having it on the shelf for years and years and years of me never using it. I tried really hard to use it and did get some good work out of it, but ultimately it wasn't something that sat with me well. I never quite knew what I was doing, and then there were moments when I did, and then it was beautiful, and then I couldn't work it out again. But anyway, I used it in a live performance with a friend of mine who was singing, and I was taking her voice through the magneto, and it has a bypass. This is the point I'm getting to, is the magneto actually has a bypass, a CV controllable one. And I would use that all the time, turning it on, turning it off, turning it on, you know, grabbing some of her vocal and threading that about the place, and then allowing her to layer up harmonies over the top. It was brilliant, and then you could let it all go and then bring it back in again. And I thought that was great and completely normal. And I mean, this was before the pandemic. This might have been 2018, 19. Anyway, and so I thought that was marvelous. And then I was surprised not to find that functionality on any other effects module at all. It just wasn't there, and it was weird. And I actually started using pedals more than effects modules because they just make more sense, because you can turn them on and off. You know, it's the same principle in lots of things. It's like with a filter. You know, you tend to crank it all the way open as a bypass. You know, so you're not using it, and then you crank it in. I mean, how much better would it be to simply bypass that routing? And that was part of what some of the thinking through putting this module together was how much cabling this is going to generate if you end up having everything bypassed. And is there a simpler or easier way of doing that? Is it creating larger loops? How does that work? You know, those sorts of ideas, because it is busy at the top in its little patch bay. There's a lot of cables going in and out. You know, you've got eight patch cables in a 4 HP little unit, 9 if you count the control one at the bottom. So that was always going to be a worry, how much cabling you're going to be using to get through something, and would you need a bypass module for every single module? I mean, the answer to that is obviously yes, of course you do. But it does generate a bit of cabling. So yeah, it was mainly about you know, because also as a guitarist using effects, it seems completely natural to me, in order to be able to turn them on and off on a whim, to be able to change the sound, because we're changing sound all the time in Eurorack. So surely, rather than having to LFO or modulate into a wet dry mix, you know, surely there must be a better way. Was really what I was thinking. Because the thing with a wet dry is that you can turn things off and on like that, but you won't get the trails coming through, is one thing. And also it's potentially difficult with voltage to get it back to exactly where it was that you wanted it before. Whereas with this, the wet dry stays the same, and you're just turning the signal on and off to it. You know, you can also do it potentially with mute switches. I mean, in fact, I set up something similar using that switch from DPW. I haven't got it to hand. It's a very similar looking switch to the launch button, funnily enough. But I used, he's got a switch which allowed me to send different routing to different places. And that was another inspiration behind it, I think, because it gave, you know, it gave me this idea of switching from one to another and how you could use that. And if you are going to be using, you know, once we started talking about the bypass in its simplicity of what it could do, could it also be used for other things like switching routing? I mean, funny enough, I didn't actually know it was DC coupled until relatively recently, because I've been focusing purely on audio effects. That was absolutely the focus of it. And then I sort of started thinking, oh wow, you know, wouldn't it be great if it was DC coupled? And I wonder if I should test that, or if I test that and then I'm disappointed, that's going to be a shame. So I kind of sat on it for a while and then sent Manu an email, and he said, oh yeah, no, it is. It's like, oh, fantastic, because I can do all these other things as well. That's just brilliant. And then again, it wasn't until I've been testing it for the last couple of weeks that I discovered that I could do two things at once. So not all of these things were by prescribed design. Some of these things just became apparent through the using and the testing, which is interesting. It's great that if if other ideas come out of an initial idea. If it just does the one thing that you thought of, then where's the fun in that? It's got to do other things too. So there you go. That's a whole lot of stuff. Hmm. Could I use a launch gate trigger input with a foot pedal? I don't see why not. I mean, it's just a, it just needs some CV. Just needs CV above whatever it is, 5 volts presumably. We'll turn it on and turn it off again. So you could do that with some kind of pedal, I imagine. That can't be too difficult. I can't tell you what, but you probably could. There is one thing I should point out, which is there is a very, very similar module by SFS Steady State Fate. I think it is. I think I've got that right. I meant to talk about it in the video, but I thought I'd leave all that sort of explanation until the live stream. And funny enough, Divkid pointed it out to us because we were just sort of finishing it off, just finishing the prototype and thinking it was all really good, just thinking about it ready to go. And I gave Divkid a shout to say, hey, look, we're doing this thing, that would be, what do you think? And he says, oh yeah, it looks just like this other one. I go, no, because when you come up with an idea for a module, the first thing you do is browse and scour through Modular Grid trying to see if it already exists, and I didn't find anything at all that was like it. But then this Steady State Fate one crops up and it looks exactly the same. I mean, you're just going, what? How did this happen? So I sat down a bit deflated and then started looking into it, and actually it is different. The steady state one is more of a send and return. It's more of a send effect than an insert effect. So this is an insert, whereas that one was a send, and it's more of a DJ kind of mixing thing between two sources. I think there are definitely some similarities in that you can turn it off and turn it on again. But the way that it works is different enough for us to go, oh no, we are doing something different. And we did also reach out to Steady State Fate and said, would you mind if we did something that looks an awful lot like your module? And I said, no, fill your boots. No, go to town. So we did. So if you see something which is very similar, you go, ooh, then that's what happened with that. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to copy anything. It's just the logical layout of the module works in this way, and theirs did exactly the same. And well, yeah, there you go. So where were we? I can just keep talking, of course. I'll just keep talking. DC coupling, yes, it is a good idea. Auto dub, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, no, Divkid, it was important. I mean, I would have hated to have discovered that now, after the release. It was much better to have discovered it before we got there, to give us an opportunity to work out whether that was okay. And that was, it doesn't matter if you've put years of work into something. If it's not appropriate to release it because it's too close to somebody else's product, then that's just the nature of things, and you have to go back to the drawing board and come up with something else. So no, it was well worth. I'm glad we found it then, not now. Yeah, and it's not exactly the same. It's just on first inspection, it's like, no. There we go. Oh, good. God bless you. Ordering a couple. That's nice. What is the difference between a send and an insert? So with a send, on a mixer, you have sends and inserts on both these things. So a send, you turn a knob and that sends out part of the signal through something and then back again, or to a return somewhere else. And then that is mixed with the original signal back in the channel, or back in the mixer. So you're sending out part of a signal and it's coming back. So in order to set how much effect you want is based on how much signal you send to it. Whereas an insert drops straight across the signal path. So the entire signal goes out through the effect and back again. So if you're doing dynamics, for instance, going through a compressor, you're going to want everything to go through the compressor, so you'd use an insert. If you're using a reverb, you'll probably use a send, because you want a little bit of it going out through the effect and back again in a mixer. I mean, that's audio processing. As far as this is concerned, it's an insert because because you're going through an individual module in probably with an individual line, you can then set the wet dry mix in the reverb in the effects box itself, and so that makes more sense. It gives you a bit more control over what's going on, I think. If you on a mixer, you tend to be sending to a single reverb multiple channels, and that's why a send really works for that. You know, little bits all going out to the same module, which is set to 100% wet. Whereas with an insert, you choose that one effect for that one channel. That doesn't sound to me like that's going to be any clearer. There you go. What's my favourite application so far for this? I mean, that's a good question. I'll tell you three things that have worked really well. The first one is just the slow on and off to a delay. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of set it and forget it. You have something which is turning the bypass on and off, just slowly turn it off, having the soft bypass come through, so it squirts a whole load of stuff out through a delay, and then it turns that off and those trails disappear. And it's just a really nice way of preventing a particular sound from getting too muddy and too sort of muggy, too overwhelming. You can often, when you're running through a delay for a long period of time, there's just so much stuff coming back, and this sort of really thins it out in a nice way, which sort of brings it forward and has those things going on that blossom and then disappear, and then blossom and disappear. So using it on a delay, any sort of delay, I think is really, really effective, particularly on something like the Surface, which gives you a nice stringy sound. Just brilliant. So that, and I've used that, as I say, a lot at EMOMs, because you can just set that going and you don't have to worry about it again. So that's really nice. The other thing that I discovered sort of by accident was that was sort of the tremolo effect, and you can use it very much in a similar sort of way. But instead you're sending an LFO to the gate input, and that's turning it off relatively fast to give you that tremolo effect, and that's just really nice. And it's nice that it's not just muting, it's not just turning it on and off, but it's also going into the effects loop, so you kind of have this it's a chewier sound than having it go from signal to no signal, signal to no signal. It's going from signal to affected signal, signal to affected signal, and that gives it a much softer sort of vibe when doing a tremolo, and that can be really nice. And I sort of discovered that by accident, by just turning the wrong knob at some point and wondering what would happen. So those two are great. The other one is the accent on a bass line, just being able to put that in. I mean, I think I've got that going now, haven't I? If I have a look at this. So, can you see this? How can I make you see this? Hang on a second. So on this is I think the patch I had at the end of the video. I've got Pony VCO coming through this filter, and this is going through the Kyobra Barillo, or is it the Barillo Kyobra? I can never remember. And just down this side, and I've got a gate pan going to it. So yeah, so that's that. So that's just a fun thing. It's an obvious thing. In fact, I was kind of inspired by Nina Richards at this. We did this live jam over in Bristol to celebrate Rack Records, the launching of Rack Records, and me and Nina did a bit of a jam, and she's the acid queen and had all this acid stuff going on, but she had that Boss pedal that she was leaning on every now and again to bring that in, to bring distortion into these acid bass lines that she was doing. And that sounded phenomenal. And I was thinking, yeah, I can do that. I can do that with the bypass. That would be fantastic. Just be able to drop that in as an accent, rather than relying on it already being there in some kind of ready-made box. You are making it happen through your choices and what you're doing, and finding the right sort of distortion as well. Because the Kiobra has worked really well, but funnily enough, if you overdrive the Milky Way, the Endorphins Milky Way, that gives you a really nice distortion also. In fact, can I demo that? Oh well, heck, let's swap between the two. There you go, creative muting. What am I doing here? That's really nice. So at the moment it's using some sort of reverb, but that's switching to. But if I push the output to drive factor here. Yeah, that sort of thing. How difficult is the build? I've no idea, Frank. I haven't opened the bag yet, so I don't know. Oh, cheers, Divkid. If you're heading off, that's cool. Thanks very much for that. Your support is greatly appreciated. So yeah, I will be able to tell you in a few days. When am I going to do it? I don't know when I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it as soon as I can. I hopefully no more than a week, and I'll have a look. Mike's quiet when the music's playing. Yeah, okay, I'll try to balance that better. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just need to talk into it. Exactly. When I turn over here, I completely forget that I'm no longer got the microphone attached to myself. I will try to do better. Try to do better. What's the maximum frequency that the gate will respond to? Don't know. How do I how would I test that? How would we hear that? I mean, I can stick an LFO into it. it doesn't. I don't know that I'm clever enough to understand exactly what that would do. So if I turn this back up again a little bit and bring my microphone over. And see, that's going to work better, isn't it? I mean, that's a maximum on the Batumi, and that appears to be still doing a thing. Does that answer the question? Could do. Could do. Audio rate? Well, yeah. I mean, the Batumi goes all the way up to can become a VCO, you know, at the top there. So yes, absolutely audio rate. No problem. No problem. Oh, it's just been funny. I've had such a week, right, where I just, my feet have not touched the ground. I've been everywhere, going everywhere, doing everything. And, you know, I've had this booked in, the launch day for about a month. And knowing that it was there and just everything was building up around today. And it's like, oh my goodness, trying to get this thing done, ready to go. Has been mad. It's just been a crazy week. I don't even know where my brain is anymore. But hey, we got here. We got here. So that's awesome. So I mean, I could put together. I could just work on a patch for a bit after I've had my beer, and then call it a night. See if that's interesting. The strange sort of row of 4 that I did, I've sort of recorded that as a patch, and I'll stick that out as a video tomorrow with a bit of an explanation, I think, because that was quite good fun. Definitely the idea of having multiples is a you know, is a reality, I think, because one you can do a lot with 1, but 2, heck, you can do a lot with 2. You could have one then sort of devoted to voltage and 1 to audio, that kind of thing. Of course, you know, 1 per effects unit, but that's probably asking a lot. One thing you might notice is because of the left-right normalization is like when you're plugging in your modulations, once you've plugged in, if you plug in 1 at the top and the other things are already linked up, it will go a bit weird, particularly if you've got voltage going in one side and you've got audio in the other, because you're suddenly sticking voltage through an audio effect, because the normalization will mean that the thing you stick into the left side will come through both channels until you patch in the right side. Are you with me? It's just, I'm just saying that it might sound a bit weird. Yeah, the stereo strip is a really good pairing. I mean, I think that might be one of the reasons me and Divkid were talking about it. But with his output module, which is phenomenally useful, I use it all the time now. It's a permanent resident in here. His output module you could use with a row of stereo strips, which then needs a row of Molten bypasses. That would look pretty sweet to have, say, 4, 6 channels maybe. How many channels have you got in here? 1, 2, 3, 6. Yeah, 6 channels of that I think would be rather nice. It's a lot of power supplies. That's the downside. But that's would be a really interesting way of mixing. Definitely. Yeah, FTP. That's kind of that's kind of the same sort of thing, I suppose. Yeah. Mantis or tiger? Which do I prefer? I have a mantis turning up later in the week, so I'll be able to tell you. I can't tell you just at the minute until I've tried the thing. But the tiger is brilliant. I really like it. It's a lovely thing to have. So the mantis has got some work to do. It's got its work cut out, I would say. So the first half of the week, I know. Weeks don't seem to mean anything anymore. I think my original design had two. I think I stacked two on top of each other because I wasn't seeing it as two channels stereo. I thought I'd have sort of two mono ones with perhaps stereo returns. Is that how I did it? So if you imagine splitting the module in half and having, you know, in out, so in send return out, so four with a button and four with a button. I think that's how I originally planned it. Which is just trying to fit too much functionality into one space. That's the thing. Whereas this accomplishes the same thing but in a much nicer layout. So well then, why don't I see if I can patch something together, change whatever it is sequence that's going on and try to make it do something else. Maybe that would be fun. Maybe that would be fun. Let's do that. Will the schematic be available? Don't know. I don't know. Do they generally give out schematics? Don't know. That's a question for Bafako. Yeah, I mean, it's a simple module. I mean, what is there to ask, really? So let me see if I can patch something together, and we'll call it a night. That one, I think. There we go. There we go. Well, actually, you don't really need me, do you? Well, then I'll probably accidentally say something to camera and forget that I'm not on camera, so I'll leave it like that, and then you can just look at the side of my body as I stand up to do this. So there you go. That's a nice view of my tummy for you. But what I could do is I could bring this in and have it pointing at something. Ooh, I can have it pointing at something. What should I be pointing at? Does it really matter? No, probably not. Probably not. Let's just do a bit of that. Bit of that. So you probably can't hear me anymore, but that's okay. Just going to do this for a bit, yeah? Yes, I do the pedal thing all the time. Right here is a guitar pedal, which is doing exactly that. So why don't I start off with the surface then, because that's doing that. I'm going to do that. That's going to go into there. Take that out. This is then. Take this. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll get something going in a minute. Right, so that's going, but it's not going. Oh, because that's not plugged in. That'll be it. So yeah, that went really badly for a good while, but you know, I think it's a testament to my perseverance that I just thought, no, rather than just say, right, that's it, I'm going home, I'm going to stick with it, and it came out with something quite interesting, quite simple, but I mean, obviously, where this leads you, where the Molten BYPASS leads you, is to effects-laden patches. You know, in the past I would have put a delay somewhere and ran something through it, had a reverb on the end, that sort of thing. That would have been probably it. Everything else would have been modulation and filtering and that sort of thing. Whereas what the Molten BYPASS seems to push you towards is the idea of doing interesting things with your effects. You know, on and off, obviously. But there can be more to it than that. And now what I'm doing all the time is thinking about how can I create good and interesting gate patterns. rather than trigger patterns. Because trigger patterns are alright and you can latch on and latch off with each trigger. But using differing gate lengths is what's going to make this more interesting, because you can hold things on and then drop it and then hold it on and drop it. And I'm surprised by how few of those things I have. Things with variable gate lengths. Think about that one now. I guess ultimately you can introduce an envelope and use that. So trigger an envelope and have that set the length of how long something's been open for. That's a possibility. Yeah, so this is a bonkers effects laden simple sequence. Alright, that'll do, I think. Noodle, yeah. Sounds like an ice cream van in a David Triffid's film. Perfect, yes. Awesome. So yeah, I think we'll call it a night. That'll do for me. It's been, as I say, an exciting time. Lots going on. It's good to get this module out in the world. I'd be fascinated to hear what you do with it. And as I say, I mean, now that I have it out there in the world and in the wild, I could leave it in my rack, because, you know, for the last 6 months I've had to keep pulling it out whenever I'm actually doing something on camera, because I don't want it to be in shot. So it's great now that I can just leave it in there and start using it for things. I think what is probably going to end up being more interesting, or most interesting, is working with modulation to see where that can be fun. I mean, for instance, I was making gate patterns the other day using the Molten motion meter to mix 3 sort of triggers together. So it's like the Octone sequencer has a gate output on each step. So I took 3 of those steps, plugged it into the motion meter in order to mix the 3 together to give me an output to give a gate pattern into the Molten bypass. You see, that's the clever stuff. That's the things I need to be thinking about more in order to work out how I can best manipulate and use these things. Wrestled it into shape. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I flipping did. Thank you. Thanks, Frank. That's lovely. Great stuff. So yeah, that'll do us, I think. Thanks for joining us. Do go and make some tunes out there. Don't forget about things like Patreon. That's enormously helpful. People come and support me over there. Always got big ideas for that, but I'm not going to dwell on stuff. Hi Electric, it's good for you to join us, but I'm just heading off. So yeah, you should be able to find the Molten bypass available at most good stockists. With a bit of luck, failing that, reach out to Bafako. They would probably have some, or know where you can get one if that's a problem. If you'd like me to build one for you personally, then just send me a big bag full of money and I'll be happy to do that. All right. That's it for now. I'll see you for the Molten monthly, which will be happening in a couple of weeks. I'm probably going to have my head down until then. Oh yeah, no, other than the build video, the build video and the Korg video and other bits and pieces. Oh, there's no end to it. Very exciting. Anyway, I'll go now, right? And not that one. And I will see you later. See, I was hoping that was going to be dramatic, but that that wasn't it. That wasn't it. What number is it? What number's that? I can't see it from here. I thought that is 8. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. There we go. Right, let's try that again. This time.